before I start, I really want to congratulate the winners again of the awards, because it was a fantastic event. Thank you very much, Nadia, Marta, Sylvia, Miranda, for organizing this. It was a real fun event. It was a little chaotic, but what do you expect with so many ladies in the house, all want to sit at a different table and want to eat something else. But it all worked out. Nobody went home hungry. Well, I did, but that was to be expected. So today we have a lovely program. We're delighted that we're doing this in conjunction with Money 2020. It's their sort of last day, and I'm sure we all get up every day during this week at like 5 a.m., 6 a.m. But in all fairness, you do get home even more energized than when you started. So today we're going to have some plenary sessions here. We have a really fantastic program, and of course it is packed, but that is what we always do. We take too many luggage, too many speakers, too much hairspray. It's always too much, but you know, this is what we love. We have a fantastic manual also at the very end of the day, so I really would say, you know, try to stick with us as long as you can, because as my grandfather used to say, you can sleep in your coffin. Without further ado, I would actually like to ask Martha to join me on stage to officially kick off this event. And by the way, I have noticed that the Money 2020 Wi-Fi doesn't always work here, but the RAI Wi-Fi, which is free and open, works. And secondly, I would like to encourage you to share your opinions and your observations on Twitter, but only authentic and real ones. Remember my speech from yesterday. Martha, please join me on stage and kick it off.
Good morning. Can I use that as well? Morning, everybody. I'm African, so according to our culture, it's very rude for the host to eat before the guests. And we wouldn't be here if Tracy didn't host us today. So before I officially kick off the event, I would like to invite our host, Tracy, to say a few words.
I'm going to go out front. The power position. It's a bit scary. That was my first initiation with public speaking. I had to open the Las Vegas Money 2020. There's about 6,000 people in that audience. And so I decided that I would hide behind the lectern, and the stage manager walked me to the front and said, "No, you'll do it from the front." It was absolutely terrifying. But I did it, and now I do it quite a lot. So I will stand in the power position, as they call it. So thank you very much for that lovely welcome. You always have such great parties, and I never get to come to them. I came to your awards due last year, and I had to run off before the dinner. Last night, I ran in for a glass of wine and then ran off to a street party. And today, you'll see me slip out. It's nothing personal. You have great parties. My goal is to stay at one of your parties. So we're really delighted to partner with EWPN. I think it has a sort of metaphor for money, in the sense of this week we've been talking about partnerships, open platforms, and so here we have an open platform for a seamless inclusion experience. We don't quite got there yet, a bit like seamless customer experiences, but I'm confident that by working together, and we work with a number of organisations around the world, and we're delighted to be working with EWPN. I'm an outsider, I guess. I don't come from the financial services space. I come from the media space. That's my background. And my experience is very different. I work for an organisation that has a 52% female board. My boss is an award-winning change agent for diversity and inclusion. So when I find myself in the retail and financial services spaces where I've spent most of my career, the experience of many of the individuals I interact with is very different, where they work in environments where there aren't people like them. There's much more similarity than there is difference. And that's been quite eye-opening because my experience has generally been very good. I reached the heady heights of doing the 11FS podcast last week. It was actually a video cast. And Dave Breer asked me if I was really depressed about where we find ourselves. And I really don't. I feel very hopeful working on some of the stuff on Money 2020, which I'll talk about very briefly in a moment. I feel very energized about what organizations are doing. Indeed, I know you're working with MasterCard today, and we see organizations, big organizations in this industry, driving real change. And I feel more positive now than I think I felt for a while. And I've been really proud to lead a purpose drive on this at Money 2020. We have quite big stages, you've probably seen them, and to go out there and to talk about the business benefit case of inclusion, we've had such incredible feedback. And I often get asked the question about female speakers. It's been really hard. We get less than 15% of applications from women. We get many all-male submissions from many household names in this industry. And we have now been in a process of challenging that for the past 2.5 years, which is why we're now in a position where we have 30% of our speakers are female, which is still not good enough, but we are challenging back and making real progress in this. And I had a really heated debate with my team this morning, because some of them feel very strongly that we shouldn't have targets or quotas. That's not right. That ongoing debate carries on. But we still have many more women who turn us down for speaking than men. I'll leave you with that thought. So delighted to be here, delighted to be driving around the purpose of inclusion. And I heard a really fabulous quote that I'll leave you with last week, which is that diversity is the invite to the party, but inclusion is being asked to dance. So I think on that note, I won't be doing karaoke, but I hope you have a fabulous day. Thank you so much. And you've got a packed agenda, and I'm delighted to have Martha back.
Thank you, Tracy. So I think people are waking up now. So I would like again to congratulate the winners from last night, from all the awards. Congratulations to all. The nominees as well. Everybody that met to the shortlist, you're all winners. Nobody's a loser. So congratulations. But thank you again, MasterCard, for making this possible. They've been supporter of EWPN, and they've been very generous with their sponsorship this year. Thank you very much, and we'll hear from Amy later on. Thank you, Paysafe, for giving us food last night, Credorax for drinks, all the individual award sponsors, Ingenico, PXP, SEI, and SegPay. And today's lunch is sponsored by NSA, so thank you very much. But also the volunteers of EWPN. As you know, we are a community of authentic and dedicated people who have the passion of creating this incredible community. And we do that on the side, on top of our daily jobs. It's not an easy task, I can guarantee you that. But all this is possible from the dedication and the passion and commitment from all the teams. So I would like to appreciate you all for taking time, for putting all your efforts and the passion and the authentic dedication that you've shown in creating this community. We've created an incredible community. As you know, EWPN is a not-for-profit organization, so none of the volunteers are paid. Nobody is taking money of this. So it's really incredible to see all the men and women putting all their efforts to create this community. Now, this year, I remember when we first started EWPN, I had a chat with one of the delegates, and they said the reason why they came back the second time was because of something that I had said at the very beginning. And it's an Ubuntu saying that says, I am because we are, and we are because I am. So at the end of the day, we are all connected as human beings. We share the universe, and as a community in the industry, we are all connected, and we need to support each other. And that's the reason that we're working so hard to create the community, so that we can create that professional and inclusive environment for everybody. And so There's a lot of things, like Connie already said, we have action-packed agenda. There's a lot of discussions that are going to go, but what I want to introduce this year, we realize that we are the change makers. We have the responsibility to drive the changes we want to see in our industry. And we believe that we, as EWPN, as a community, we should take that first step in doing so. So this year, we're introducing actions that we want to present to the industry and to create challenge to the industry so that we can actually start seeing what's going on. We see a lot of transactions going through the industry that are linked or related to modern-day slavery, child prostitution, human trafficking. But unlike with AML, where there's clear guidelines and fines, not much is being done when it comes to tackling these things. So one of the action points for our conference this year is to call on the industry to take that responsibility and ownership of dealing and monitoring transactions and putting checks and steps to ensure that these kind of transactions are not running through the rails, because you are responsible for that. So mobilizing industry to combat modern-day slavery, human trafficking, forced prostitution, and child pornography. That's action 1. Action 2 is to deliver inclusive, ethical, and sustainable products and services. And action 3 is to take tangible action to actually create diverse and inclusive work environments, not just as a CSR, but actually implementing and taking steps. And the last action is creating products and services that take into account the vulnerable, misplaced people, and people who don't have a place to, the homeless as well. Because there's a lot of wars and conflicts going around the world. There's a lot of refugees. There's a lot of vulnerable people, while the community and the industry is moving from cashless, moving to cashless society. We don't take into account the vulnerable, the elderly, and whatnot. So those are our action points, and we would like to actively call the industry to ensure that you create products and services and you take responsibilities for that. So we will evaluate. So if your company or your organization or you as an individual, you're interested to find out how you can be involved in these actions, please do send us an email. And next year, we will evaluate which organizations and companies are actually doing so. So the last thing that I will say is, at the end of the day, a lot of people say that they don't come to this event because they think we're going to be talking about women-only, diversity-only issues, but we have exceptional experience, expertise, founders, people with, running companies. We have a lot of experts within the community, so it's not just, there's a few men who've attended, and also a few women who've said that they will not be interested in attending this event. It's not just we talk only about issues about women. We do talk about that. We can go from, like yesterday we were talking about how you can go from talking about issues with pregnancy to talking about fraud and checkout. It's one and the same. You don't leave your humanity when you come to work. It comes with you. You're a person, you're one and the same person. So let's try to create that environment that allows us to be human and experts at the same time. So I can talk the whole day, but I won't do that. I'm going to welcome Claire to the stage. She's from MasterCard, and they are our sponsors, so she'll talk more. Thank you very much, Claire, and enjoy the rest of the day. We'll talk later.
So thank you, Tracy, and thank you, Martha. It's an absolute privilege to be talking about such an important topic as creating inclusion. But it's about creating inclusion in a sustainable way. And for us at MasterCard, that is a key priority. So I'm Claire Thompson. I joined MasterCard just over a year ago, and I was brought in to lead global B2B trade. But it's not enough just to drive trade. You have to drive trade in an inclusive manner and in a sustainable manner. At MasterCard, we're extremely focused on this, but we can't just do that alone. We do that with our partners, whether that's other private enterprises and governments and organizations like yourself. We have a commitment at MasterCard. A few years ago, we set ourselves 2 targets. One was to include 500 more individuals and 40 million more micro merchants into the financial system across the globe. And we're well on our way to achieving that. Wow. So for us, it's about doing well, but doing well by doing good. So let me take you through a few journeys on how we're doing that. And we're not doing it alone. You'll see from these examples, we're collaborating with other companies in the private sectors and other governments. So Jazzaduka. Jazzaduka was something we started in 2017 with Unilever. Because 2 of the biggest problems to women's prosperity is access to financial credit and education. Since 2011, the number of women having access to financial credit has remained stagnant, which is an incredible statistic. 65% of women globally have access to financial services versus 72% of men. But the real worrying trend is that's stagnant. Think about all the growth that we're experiencing, but for women, that has remained constant since 2011. So what do we do about it? So we worked with Unilever, and we created a digital platform where small businesses can track how much of the Unilever goods they're buying and selling. We used our analytics to measure for all of those merchants, and then we worked with a local bank in Kenya, the Kenyan Commercial Bank, and we provided interest-free credit on the basis of tracking those goods. We're rolling that out now across other countries, and we're very open to working with other companies in doing that. As part of that as well, we also we have a Center for Inclusive Growth, and we created a financial program as part of this, which created an education about how to manage companies from a financial standpoint. So we brought the education piece into that as well. A second initiative was something we created called the MasterCard Farmer Network. So how that works is it's a digital payments platform, and you can use a very simple smartphone. So you don't need the latest gadgets, you don't need to outlay, £1,000 for an iPhone. And what it does, it basically tracks, you can buy and sell using your phone, which links to this platform. And what it actually means is a lot of those farmers, and particularly women, who are still looking after the families and the household, do not have to travel to the towns to sell their goods, which means they can also work, run their businesses, and still look after their families in a very sustainable way. We've reached a target now. We've reached 300,000 farmers as of earlier this year. So education. 1 in 4 girls in developing countries still do not go to school. So that is obviously an astonishing statistic. So what did we do about it? So we developed Coupa, which is a digital payments platform. What it is a platform where any carer linked to those children can pay for their school fees in small installments. And as well as doing that, another reason that often those families send the girls to school is to get meals. So we also we partnered with the World Food Programme in creating provision of 100 million meals across the countries. By now, we have 165,000 students in 300 schools across Uganda alone. So, let me move from local to global. So one of the things we're also looking at is, if you think about your consumer life, how it's changed in the last decade, right? You can pay with the tap of your phone, you can buy goods, sell goods. Life has become much more easy and convenient. But compare and contrast that to your business life. I'm sure that is not the same. So we have been working at MasterCard with our partners, and we've partnered with Microsoft in developing a global business-to-business trade platform. Again, not just about driving trade. You heard about the consequences of driving trade in a non-sustainable manner, the lack of inclusion. So we're doing this to also democratize trade. And it's often the little guys, the SMEs, who get left out of that process. So for us, this is also an inclusion piece from an SME standpoint. So 2 important things I want you to take away from that is, firstly, there are 265 million companies registered around the world, officially registered with the registrars in the countries. Within Track, we have now 210 million of those companies, and 90% of those, by definition, are SMEs. So here's where the inclusion piece comes in. And we're working to digitize that identity. But we're not creating a digital island, as there are many of those processes and systems out there. The key of this is in collaboration with banks, with other technology companies, and other solution providers that go all the way from procurement to pay. So it's an open platform, and we're inviting partners, and the key core to this is coming back to the inclusion point and making those 90% of companies relevant, but relevant that they can also trade globally around the world by digitizing their identity and creating trust and driving trade and growth in a sustainable manner. I hope you join us in this journey going forward. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
That was brilliant. And it's actually interesting to see how, I think, more and more all over, we're moving from point-to-point solutions to ecosystems. And that came really out in your presentation. And ecosystems are one of the best ways to include not just women, but people everywhere. And for those of you who saw it or didn't see it, I had a compassionate plea for inclusion in that yesterday, because all too often, I think that parties like these become echo rooms of successful people. And, we're already all, really, really blessed to be here and to have access to events like these and together. And really, we're not doing the fintech thing to become the next unicorn, at least I don't. We're doing this to build a better world. And I think ecosystems are a wonderful way to get there. And our next speaker is also going to talk about inclusion. And before I invite Victoria Cleland on stage, Executive Director for Banking and Payments and Innovation at the Bank of England, so that's not a mean job, may I say. So we're delighted to have you here. Can I ask you to come on stage? Because I actually have a question for you. As a means of introduction. Morning.
Hi.
I was reading your profile and I thought that give the lady a warm welcome. And I saw that until recently you're also chief cashier.
Yeah.
And very often this whole space is all about there's only one thing in the world and it's digital. And of course, as chief cashier, you also had a role in cash. Thank you. We're looking forward to your speech. Thank you so much.
Thank you. And thank you ever so much for welcoming me here today. I was going to start by talking a bit about my own credentials. So it's a Women in Payments conference, so why should I be here? And I wrote this slide before I actually went to the awards ceremony yesterday, and hearing about all the amazing things that people have achieved, I now need to be slightly careful about being a woman in payments. Just part of my career is in this. But I think yesterday's event gave everyone here a lot to strive for. I started my working life as an accountant. I was there for about 6 months. I really wasn't enjoying it. I was thinking, I want to do more than this. I remember sort of speaking to my mother and saying, oh, I've just resigned from the accountancy firm. And she's like, you've done what? I said, I'm not enjoying it. And her words were, and this is my mother, well, are you sure that wouldn't be a nice, safe career for when you're married with children and that would be an easier life for you? And I'm like, no, I don't enjoy it. I want to do something else. And I've actually been at the Bank of England ever since. And as you can see from the list of different things I've done there, I've been at the Bank of England quite a long time. The ones in red are where I've been actually doing things in payments. My current role is Executive Director, Banking, Payments and Innovation. So I run the real-time gross settlement system, our sort of key payment system for the UK. I'm responsible for our divisions running customer banking relationships. So we bank about 150 central banks from around the world. I'm responsible for emergency liquidity assistance into if you've got sort of institution in difficulty, and also responsible for the gold that's stored in the vaults. And that's a really fun bit of the job, seeing the tangible gold. Since I've been at the bank, I've noticed a real change. When I first joined, there was just one female head of division. We had a governor, executive directors, heads of division. There was just one female in that very senior position. Now we're at 31% of staff of head of division and above are women. That's up from 17% in 2013, and we're trying to get that even further. So I have done quite a bit in payments. I'm still doing work in payments. So that's why I'm here. But why are we in Amsterdam? I was thinking, well, if I'm a woman in payments, I can count. But why are you in Amsterdam? And I found this picture. Okay, no women in it. But apparently, Amsterdam was the first stock exchange in the world back in 1602. So absolutely core at the heart of payments even then. Now, things have changed a lot since the Amsterdam Stock Exchange was founded, lots of different means of payment. I do, though, wonder, having been at the dinner last night, if EWPN had been around then, would we have got to digital a lot more quickly than we have without you? But let's see. So what I want to talk today is very much about the Bank of England's role in embracing technology, particularly in the payments landscape, and also why diversity matters to us at the bank. So the bank's mission is about promoting the good of the people of the UK by maintaining monetary and financial stability. But we also increasingly try to enable innovation, empower competition, and we're really looking to support the user's interest, to deliver what they want. We're trying to promote a broader range of institutions. And we think that to achieve this, we need to look at diversity across a whole range of issues in its really broadest sense. I mean, Mark Carney, the Governor of the Bank of England, said as a public institution, we need to have the staff that reflect the public that we serve. So the staff are going to be important to that. We think it's absolutely crucial that people have a diverse range of payment mechanisms. They should be able to choose what they want. We also need to have a diversity in views when we're deciding what we want to do in changing our approach, for example, to the real-time gross settlement system. So actually going out and engaging with users to get those views is important. And we think diversity in technology is also crucial to this. We don't want to be reliant on just one thing. So I mentioned the diversity of payments and why choice is so important. I think one of the things we're seeing in this sort of changing world is that different people want and often need very different ways of paying. We need to be able to offer that. It's certainly not one size fits all anymore. And I think fintech is something that is enabling us to meet that diverse range of needs. People want to choose when they pay, how they pay, where they pay. It's no longer that you have to wait until the bank branch opens at about sort of 9 in the morning and shuts at 3, which doesn't fit with many people. We want that optionality. Cash is still there. As I say, for some people, it is absolutely crucial. But we're seeing credit cards, debit cards, we've got checks, we've got faster payments, we've got mobile payments, you've got payments on watches, you've got payments on contactless cards. So it's a really changing environment, and we as a central bank want to support that. We want to make sure that these diverse needs and wants can be met. Consumers should be able to get what's there. But also we see benefits in diversity in terms of promoting sort of financial stability in the system, so another core benefit for the Bank of England. So you can get diversity in a number of different ways. You've got diverse firms. That's not just giving more choice for people, it's actually meaning you've got different business models. You're not just reliant on one type of organisation. If you've got business continuity events, you've got other places to go. You've got more firms there providing a service. So if you've got this diversity of payments, diversity of providers, it can actually give the public much greater confidence that they're making payments, that things really can happen, that they don't actually need to have their lifetime savings stacked onto the bed or something, that you don't need to be paying people days and days in advance just in case something doesn't go through. So it's giving the public confidence. And the Bank of England's role in this is across a number of different areas. So one is actually the operations we run, so providing the real-time gross settlement system, the backbone to the payments landscape in the UK. We supervise the firms who are using the bank's payment infrastructure, so making sure that they're fit and proper, that people's money is safe, looking at sort of reducing the probability of them having outages and things, and also supervising payment systems and core market infrastructure. So in the UK, for example, faster payments or BACS. So we're trying to make sure those are secure. And also, and I think it's really important, particularly for central banks who can be seen as quite risk averse, and we want to maintain stability, that we don't forget the benefits of innovation. We don't forget those benefits in competition and can actually embrace what the fintech industry has there. So we need to look at it as a whole. What are the benefits we can get from fintech? If there are risks, how do we mitigate those? And one of the main sort of things I'm focusing on at the moment is our real-time gross settlement system, where well over £600 billion of every working day goes across our books. So it's absolutely crucial that this system is there, up and running. Even if it goes out for a number of minutes, you'll see disruption. If it goes out for an hour or so at the wrong time of day, people literally cannot move house. The wholesale markets begin to clog up. So it's an important system. It was first built in 1996. And as I say to my friends, imagine what sort of telephone you were using in 1996. Very few would have had mobile phones. Those that did, including my dad, had a phone that was sort of like this. Technology has moved on telephones. Technology certainly needs to move on in terms of our real-time gross settlement system. So we're renewing it. We're thinking really carefully about innovation, but as well as resilience. We're being very careful that we go and consult with the users. What exactly do you want in this system? We're not just going to sit in our ivory tower at the Bank of England trying to think what people need. We're out there asking them, and also acknowledging the benefits of having a sort of diverse range of views and expertise. We're actually in the process of tendering for a technology delivery partner who will work alongside us to make sure that we are really using the best technology. And so what are we trying to achieve in this? We're actually looking for a world-class payment service. Absolutely at the heart of it is resilience. So we're looking at cyber. How do we protect the bank and all those who join it from that? Thinking about BCP events, also operational resilience. We set really ambitious targets of 99.95% uptime because it is so important that the system remains up. So resilience is absolutely crucial to what we're doing, but we want to go further. So we're thinking about improved user functionality. What can we do to support the users of the system, using more big data, giving them more information about liquidity, introducing read-write ATM, so sort of trying to embrace fintech to make it easier for them. Also, greater interoperability. So here we're thinking about diversity in terms of different payment systems. So with the new system, we should have the flexibility to reroute payments between one system and another, so helping out in business continuity events. And absolutely at the heart of this is greater access. So we're looking to introduce a more diverse set of firms to the RTGS system. Until very recently, it was only banks who could join. Last year, we introduced a number of non-bank payment service providers. So 5 have onboarded. We've got about 20 in the wings. So by opening up access to these players, we're going to introduce diversity of players, promote innovation, get some competition, and actually bring down the cost of some of these players who are having to go through essentially one of their competitors to get a payment service. They can now come directly to us. So through access, we're promoting diversity of ideas and options for payments. And also, we're looking in the new system to strengthen end-to-end risk management. So we've brought CHAPS, which is our high-value payment system, into the Bank of England. And one of the reasons for doing that is that we can then draw on the whole wealth of expertise across the bank. We can use our cyber teams, we can use the influence of the Prudential Regulation Authority, as well as our operational side to really create the best system end-to-end. I think one of the really important things about payments is it is a network. Until we brought CHAPS in-house, we were protecting the real-time gross settlement system absolutely to our best. You then look at CHAPS, who had a different set of people looking at that. We're now able to look at CHAPS, real-time gross settlement system, and we're going even further. We're thinking who are some of the key suppliers to the CHAPS direct participants. Are they too concentrated? Do they need a greater diversity in suppliers? So as we go to sort of renew the system, we're thinking very much about diversity, not necessarily in the way that you've been talking about it here, but really diversity in every aspect of life and approach. And so diversity has been helping us in a number of different ways. And I think absolutely core to that is listening to a diverse range of views, making sure that when we decide how to renew this system, that we really are listening to industry, listening to what they want, how do they see the system progressing in the future. This is a big investment. The system should be ready and the programme will finish by 2025. So we're looking forward, but we need to make sure we're not just delivering what people want for 2025. We're trying to think, what might you be wanting in 2030? How do you see that customer base changing? So we're talking to a very wide range of firms, large firms, small firms, existing members, potential members, and also to users as well and to suppliers, trying to really understand what is there happening in the world of technology. So we've got lots of different channels of engagement. Sometimes it's bilateral meetings, sometimes we'll have forums. We're increasingly setting up a number of sort of groups to listen to users. So we've recently set up the Standards Advisory Panel, which is about ISO 20022, and that, although it is really the background work is led by the Bank of England and Pay.UK. It's led by Jana from WorldPay, so trying to make sure we're getting different views into what we're doing. The RTGS CHAPS boards, we now have a number of non-executive directors, 2 out of 4 of those are women, so we're really keen to get different views, lots of expertise from payments. We work closely with the National Cybersecurity Centre, so getting these different views in to make sure that we're not thinking narrowly, we're thinking in a diverse way. And we're going consulting, so last year we had a public consultation on ISO 20022, so the new payment messaging standard. We got over 70 responses, and from that we've been going through and saying, okay, this is what people are saying, what are we now going to do differently? It's one thing going and asking for views, the other thing is really listening to those. So some of the work we're doing in relation to legal entity identifiers, we've listened and said, so we think they're really important. They can promote just not sort of transparency in payments, but can ultimately help the broader economy. The feedback we got was, yeah, but there's more that needs to be done in the basic infrastructure behind LEIs before you can mandate them for everyone. So we're listening. We're now working with government to see how we can support that greater infrastructure. And we're working closely with other authorities in the UK, so the Financial Conduct Authority, Prudential Regulation Authority, Payment System Regulator, but also looking at what our counterparts overseas are doing. There's a lot of change in payments at the moment, so we want to be able to learn from other central banks, other countries, what's happening there, what's been good and what hasn't worked. So getting a wide range of views to make sure we're developing something that is absolutely fit for the end users of that technology is really important. We're also looking at technology itself and sort of what levels of diversity there are there. I think we're always looking in terms of innovation. In my role as chief cashier in terms of physical cash, we introduced polymer notes that were more secure, but we're thinking, is there any more we can do? So we actually introduced a tactile feature to make them more inclusive to blind and vision impaired people, to help them to denominate the different value notes. And in electronic payments, we're looking, what more can we do to embrace technology? We had a call for interest last year going out to the market saying, we think we could introduce something called synchronized settlements, which essentially means that you can link a number of payments together. For example, in the housing market, you could say you've got the house purchase, you've got the legal fees, you've got the stamp duty, and we can set the system up and it would say we'll either pay all of those or none of those. They're all closely joined together. But we put out a call for interest saying, is this the sort of thing that you as the market would want? And we're now working with people to deliver that. We made a decision that we didn't want to build a real-time gross settlement system on distributed ledger technology. It was just unproven in terms of scalability at this stage. But we want to be able to welcome a diverse range of firms. We want to be able to welcome some of the fintechs. So we had a proof of concept last year to ensure that those using DLT would actually be able to connect to our systems, and found that they would, which was great news. There are a number of things we'll change to make it even better. Also in technology, we're thinking about sort of diversification. So we'll have 2 sites and then a third backup site. So you can't just rely on one bit of technology in one place. And for the new system, we're also looking to make it message agnostic, so you don't only have to rely on one messaging system. So I think it's a different take on diversity, but actually you need a different range, different types of technology. And obviously people, I think I'm preaching to the converted here about the real benefits in diverse workforces, moving away from groupthink, getting much stronger inputs. And it's something that the Bank of England is taking really seriously. It's now top of the agenda. Court, who's the bank's board, discussed diversity, gender, ethnicity a lot. We've got targets there. I heard earlier that they're not always the best thing, but they're sort of helping to drive. We're looking at recruitment, retention, talent management. So there's now a sponsorship program for high potential women, ethnic minorities, and we've just introduced disabled people to that as well, where you'll be mentored by an executive director. And actually now the governors have taken part on that. So the governor himself is sort of sponsoring one of our sort of star women performers. So it's trying to give them that sponsorship, help open up those networks, help to give them some support. And each of the sort of executive directors, we've been given responsibility to bring about step changes in our own areas. And we've got a number of staff networks. So the Women in the Bank network has been incredibly powerful. They have speaker events, they've set up mentoring schemes, they've got workshops, they're a very strong voice, so when some of the sort of HR issues are discussed by the executive team, we'll have representatives from the Women in the Bank there, so they're incredibly powerful. They've got their own Women in the Bank Allies group as well. I'm actually the executive sponsor of our disability network, which is another important area, and I know at the awards dinner yesterday you were sort of asking the men to put their hand up and see how many were in the audience and how sort of left out they felt. I think if you go to disability, there is another area we really need to tackle, and in the bank the group there is doing that. The network celebrated its 10th anniversary last year. They've issued a video which is really powerful with staff from the bank talking about their disabilities, what it means to them, why it matters, to really help promote understanding of those differences and why those differences can actually be incredibly helpful and incredibly powerful. So I think it's getting diversity and inclusion into the workplace. It isn't something we should be doing in a tick box way. It's getting that culture right, and that's something where the bank has really been working recently. So, I mean, in terms of closing, I think diversity matters about payments. Everyone is using payments. We need to make sure they've got the right type of payment for the people when they need it. For the Bank of England, we play an important role in facilitating this by trying to enable a more diverse range of payments, by having a diverse number of firms involved in those, and really going out and listening to the users of those payments to make sure we're delivering what they want. And I know that I've been talking about diversity in a very broad way. I think it's absolutely fantastic that yesterday and today you're having an opportunity to deep dive into the sort of the women in payments, which is an absolutely crucial bit of this. So well done for arranging this conference, and enjoy the rest of the day. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And you set us up perfectly for our next section, resilience. You know, there's all sorts of great women initiatives running in tandem. And Money 2020 put up a really good program, the Rise Up program. And we were all doing presentations. It's a lovely program of around 30 women. And women that we see as great talent, and women who not only sort of will absorb what we give them, but carry it on, because that is the duty of the sort of stage in development where we are. When we get extra opportunities, we need to pass them on. And we talked about, and I did a talk about the price of perfection and the reward of resilience, which was a little bit naughty, because if there's one perfectionist in life, it's me. But because I'm 55 now, I've actually found out that I'm much better and much more successful, but in particular much more happy if I focus on resilience rather than perfection. And the next speaker I'm going to invite on stage is Olga Zoutendijk. Olga, please come. Please come and join me. Give her a hand. We are going to have a tete-a-tete, and for a very particular reason. Olga Zoutendijk was not only, please find one of those seats, yeah. Right. Luckily you didn't have one of your, narrow skirts on. I made that mistake once, so you sit there like this the whole day. Olga Zoutendijk was the very first chairman of the board of a Dutch publicly listed company. And she was the chairman of the board of ABN AMRO in a period when ABN AMRO had gone through a very traumatic change. The whole crash had landed very heavily on ABN AMRO in 2008 with sort of recent acquisitions. It was broken up into 3 pieces again. It came under government control. It was strictly protected. And Olga came in with a very explicit order to sort of see the bank through the transition from being government controlled and protected, which, although people first resisted it, was of course another status quo that you can feel safe in, for another massive heap of change to bring it to, again, a listed bank. That did not go unnoticed, to say the least. We're going to speak later about, the risk of standing for your conviction. So this is a very private setting. She's going to share her thoughts on that with you. Because pay heed, if you stand up for something, you do sometimes pay the price, and we're going to talk about that. So we're going to talk about reward and resilience, but we're also going to talk about the industry. And I feel, because so many people have formed an opinion, and we always do, because we read something or we hear something, I really want to start, Olga, by giving you the chance to talk about yourself, rather than having other people telling us, who you are and what you do. So why don't we start off by you telling me, what sort of was your home? Because I can't imagine you woke up and said, oh, you know what, Mommy, I'm going to be a banker. So what's your family background?
Yeah, thanks, Connie, and good morning, everybody. Well, to start at the beginning, I won't make it too long, don't worry. I was born in Curaçao, grew up in Holland, and was the eldest of 2 children. So I had an overdeveloped sense of responsibility from a very young age, as happens to most of us that are the eldest in the family. My mom and dad, they were very, very active. I grew up in a very dynamic family. They were active in corporate life. They were politically engaged. They were active, with culture, music, charity, think tanks. I mean, you name it. If you had to imagine our dinner table, we would have massive discussions about everything that was happening in the world. And I learned right then, I was supposed to take a position, and I had to make sure I had my facts straight. And it's funny because whenever I would bring some friends home and they would come over and they would see this, they'd be part of the dinner table and they'd be like, oh my God, like they're all fighting, like what's going on? But we weren't having a fight at all. We were actually having great fun. But, you had to have your facts straight, for sure.
Yeah.
I left home quite young. I left home when I was 12. I went to an international boarding school. And, well, it was an amazing experience because, I would have a breakfast with, American girls. I would walk to class with a Japanese boy. I would be drinking tea with, Arabs and Israelis. And it was like a small United Nations, all of us together. And I think it's fair to say that that was the international inspiration for the rest of my life.
For things to come.
Yeah.
And I know that then you went on to work with ABN AMRO as sort of what we call then a traineeship program. And we talked about this before because we had very similar backgrounds. You have to imagine we grew up in sort of the 70s. And our parents had an incredibly overdeveloped sense of responsibility, being war children, of giving back to society.
Absolutely.
So when we were preparing this, we were talking about it, and it's really very different. The first thing my parents told me was, if you have a talent, don't just use it to earn a living. Use it to empower other people. If you have a talent, you have to share it. And that's sort of the setting in which we grew up. And then you went to ABN AMRO, and it really was your first step to sort of get abroad.
Yes, and I then spent 30 years abroad in 8 or 10 different countries with several banks.
And so that sort of shows me that in the whole picture is you're not afraid of change.
No.
You actually love it. So
I love it.
How do you look, and having had a banking career, we're going to briefly touch on this innovation in banks. How do you think that banks are reacting to change in general?
Yeah, well, I'm very worried about innovation in banks, and as we discussed yesterday on main stage at Money 2020, I mean, innovation is about venturing into the unknown. It's about in history, we learn about the crossing of the Rubicon. So innovation is really about crossing the Rubicon. And when Caesar did this, he crossed the Rubicon River. He was disobeying orders. He broke the rules. So he was taking a big risk, and he was venturing into the unknown. But by crossing the Rubicon, he set the first step towards building, the beautiful Roman Empire. Now, if you compare that with banks, in banks historically, it's all about, and for good reasons, but historically it's all about rules, control, and status quo.
Yeah.
And that's why a lot of the innovation that you see in banks is, it's mostly about optimizing, it's about incrementalism. And that's just not going to cut it anymore. That thinking has to change.
Yeah, and we did a rise up. I did a rise up. Ask Me Anything with Chris Skinner. It's like, more or less like last night. It ended differently, luckily. But he spoke about the fact that in his new book he's going to write about the banks that get it, and he thinks that of the top tier 1 banks in the world, there's probably 5. He followed 9. He thinks there are about 5 that get it, which really flabbergasted me because every single large bank has innovation stages, etc. So what did that number do to you?
Well, I mean, it's horrifying, right? I mean, 5 banks get it today, worldwide. I mean, think about the thousands and thousands and tens of thousands of other banks that are not getting it. How are they going to be able to attract young talent to that they actually need to survive and to change and adapt? I mean, it's really a worry.
Good. Let me stop you there then, because I don't want to go deeper into sort of what banks need to do to innovate, because we're having a lot of talk about it. This special group. I want to talk about talent and inclusion, and not just women, but talent inclusion. But let's start with the women. What particular, if you look at the new world of finance, which is much more, as we talked already, the MasterCard, Bank of England, particularly MasterCard lady gave a wonderful speech about how we need to move from point to point to ecosystems whereby we collaborate. And without being sexist, because I hate to say, oh, we're so good at inclusion. Well, we're also very good at bitching. So, let's be really honest. What particular female characteristics or behaviors we have developed through the centuries will be constructive to build this new area of finance? What can all of us do to advance inclusive and new finance?
Yeah. Well, I think, given that we're, like you said, given that we're moving to open ecosystems and platforms and working with many, many other partners, collaborating, I think the most important aspect will be, if you want to be a successful part of a successful ecosystem, you have to be trusted, right? You have to be a trusted partner.
Yeah.
Now, trust, is not something that comes on day one. It's a result of relationship building. It is about understanding and listening to the other party instead of just talking. It's about empathy. These are a lot of qualities, that women are very good at, right? So like you said, it's not all women, it's not all men are not good at it, but I mean, most women are good at this, right? So building relationships and building trust and being open, to change and to other, to other perspectives and other partners that can do something better than you can, and together, you can make it happen.
Okay.
This fits quite well, I think,
Yeah.
with
No,
general female talent.
You're right. But as you know, we're still here in an imperfect world. We'll never be in a perfect world. It would be so tediously boring. How do women then get their share? How do they get their voice heard if you're not living in a totally open, inclusive, wonderful 50-50 environment?
Yeah, well, I would say...
Because you obviously managed to do that.
Yeah, I guess. I would say, you have to claim your place.
Claim your place.
Nobody's going to give it to you. Nobody's going to give up something just because you feel it's fair and your time to get it.
True.
So you got to claim your place, and that means you got to be well equipped. You got to make sure you learn and grow constantly. You build the right experience. You think about where you want to be, where you're headed. What do you need for that, and what do you have now?
Yeah. So
what's to get?
Claim your place, and then work hard at, deserving and keeping that place. And here's something I want to add, because I constantly work with young women as well, and I know that we have a lot of challenges, and we tend to look also after our families and everything else. One thing I would say is, if women come to me and say, I really want to do this, but I also want a balanced life, and they're like 32, in all fairness, I say to them, choose.
Yes.
Choices come with consequences. If you think you can be 32 and go to a pastry baking session on Tuesday night and have dinner with your student mates every Thursday evening, and have a perfect family and bake every birthday cake for your children yourself, forget it. Yes, you can do it, but I did it, but you bake at night. And so you really have to be, I think we all need to be, in a sense, much tougher on ourselves. Nothing comes for free. If you make that choice, you have to read everything. You have to, not everything, but you have to read in your interest. You have to follow it. You have to fight for it. You have to claim it. And again, perfection is not there. Resilience builds a life. Gone.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. And and that involves setting your priorities, right? So making choices, setting the right priorities.
How did you do that?
Well, I'm definitely a planner.
Because you're a family. I know you're a family person.
Yeah.
You look after your mom.
Yeah, and I have a partner. I don't have kids, so that makes things a lot easier. I don't think, I think it would be, well, let me put it this way. I could have, but it would have been much more challenging to move to 8 different countries. If I had to take kids in and out of school. There's no question about that.
Children survive.
So, but I think planning ahead and thinking about, what you want to achieve and what you need to do to get there is, a very obvious but important step. And most important for me has always been to constantly take myself out of my comfort zone. And I would really encourage you to do the same. If you're feeling comfortable, if you're feeling like, oh yeah, I can do this, this is great, it is time to move on. Yeah. It really is. Keep stretching yourself. I think life is all about learning and growing. I think that's why we're all here, right? Yeah. Learn every day. And push yourself, step into the unknown, like we started saying earlier, right? Absolutely. Keep venturing into the unknown. Yeah,
and shed off disappointment, literally. Shed it off, take a shower. It happens every day in life, and you will also always feel people who are very keen, who don't have your energy level, and so they want to do 2 things. They either want to slow you down, or they want to tag along. And those people will take your energy. So find the people around you who bring you energy, and give them energy back, and then it accelerates. But people who want to take your energy, at some point you have to shut them off. I want to come to this important period now. Driving change, as you very well know, is not without risk. No. Nobody thanked you for following very closely, what you'd been asked to do, and where you felt, because you were the chairman of the board, the bucket stops here. Yeah. The buck, stops here. Yeah. That was very clear. Yeah. You took that incredibly seriously, and you came under attack. How did you deal with that on a personal level? These are all women who want to go there as well, and we've all had difficult circumstances, but how do you feel it that you're being attacked, but you don't get the opportunity to react?
Yeah, well...
well, tell me first about, do you think it's worth to take those risks still?
Yeah, I mean, first of all, you know, I wouldn't wish that on anybody, okay? I mean, it was not fun, right? But it is what it is. So the way I look at it, and I looked at it at the time, is, okay, when change is necessary, right, and you have a unanimous mandate from all stakeholders, right, to make that change, and it's your responsibility to make that necessary change, well, then you have to step up to the plate. You know, I mean, that's just the way it is. But as you said, and as I've experienced, yeah, I mean, there can be a big price to pay.
Yeah. And then the unfortunate thing is that out of all this, you know, the whole bursting of all the banks in 2008, all the trouble, in a weird way, the wonderful thing is that fintech sort of arises from the ashes, isn't it?
Well, exactly, because, you know, I mean, when I think about what happened in this particular case, you know, at the end of the day, you know, the system was bigger than I was, right? So,
yeah.
I had to step back. But your point, right, is exactly right. You know, we have to recognize that fintech burst out of this failure of systems, right, to actually open up and offer a much better alternative way forward.
Yeah.
So to your question, do I think it's worth it? Yeah, when change is necessary, yeah, it is worth to make it is worth to take that risk. You have to, you know, it's your role at that time.
Yeah.
And I think of what Nelson Mandela said. He said, "I never lose. Either I win or I learn."
Thank you. Yeah. Wonderful closure. Thank you so much, Olga.
Pleasure.
I hope you're taking some of this to heat and to heart. Thank you.
Thanks, Connie.
Thanks.